Charumati will be starting first.
Oh, okay, cool.
Sorry, I will share my screen now. Is the slide visible?
Ah, yes.
So I'm Charvadi from second year CSE department. So I'll be like, speaking about the basic JavaScript concepts. In this year itself, like we had some HTML, CSS sessions by various clubs of our college. Now this session is going to be about JavaScript. Once you get through this, the JavaScript, the world of possibilities, the things you can do just expands drastically. With only HTML and CSS, you're kind of limited to making static websites with some animations or hover effects and all. But with JavaScript, we can do much more. So for that, first I will show you how to start typing our code in the JavaScript console. Then we can move to writing external script. So okay, console is a place that where you can do just the REPL operation: read, evaluate, print, and loop. Uh, you can like open the console in your browser itself using inspect and console option. But I will show you a shortcut. You just go to the HTML page, like open the HTML in the browser of what you want to run the console for, and press Shift Control J. It's for Linux and Windows. For Mac, it's Command Option and J. It's for Chrome browser. I think the same applies for Safari, but I don't know about the other browsers. You must refer. So yeah, this is the console. Like you can't expand it. The HTML file I opened is a very plain HTML file. It doesn't contain anything. I just opened it to show you like how a console works. Like you can do the basic operations, math operations, everything. So yeah, this is what a console is, and we will be using this console initially to see some examples and all. So the next is primitive types. The primitive types of a language is what? The basic building blocks of it. Like the primitive types of JavaScript are number, string, boolean, null, and undefined. Let's start with the number first. JavaScript has only one number type. Like some other languages, like even Python, has more than one number types. Like some has whole numbers as integers and decimals as floats and all. Like but in JavaScript, positive, negative, whole number, decimal number, everything comes under the number type. And we can do the basic operations like addition, subtraction, division, everything here. So yeah. And there is something called NaN exists in JavaScript. It's usually when we try to divide 0 by 0, it will show NaN. It means not a number. Like let me just confirm you that if let me just show you how it is from the number type. Let's do the type of 4. It's a number. Let's have some floating number like decimal number. It's also a number. And the type of NaN, it's also a number. So basically, this value is a special value in JavaScript, which represents something that is not a number, but it is considered to be a member of the number family. Okay, that's all about numbers right now. So let's move to the variables. So one way to declare a variable is through let, like let this cell is equal to, let's have something like 12 plus 34. So yeah, we can access it now. Yeah. 12 plus 34 is 46. Another way of declaring a variable is through var. That a is equal to 3. The variables we are declared through var and let, we can change the value of those. Do this. We can increment a, and now a's value will be 4. But there is also another thing called constant. Like it's like every other language, we will declare it to const. And you can't change this value. If you try to like increment it or something, like it will show you the error. So we can't change the constant values. Yeah. And another common practice in JavaScript is camel casing for having the variable names. In Python, we would have used snake casing. Like this is what we would have used in Python or something. But in JavaScript, the common practice is camel casing. Like every other new word in the variable name should start with a capital letter, but the first letter of the variable name should be a small letter. So yeah, and the same basic variable naming conventions like should not start with a number all applies here as well. So let me show you. Like, if we try to start with a number, error will come. Mm. So let's move on to the next primitive type, strings. Like the string should be named within the quotes, a double quote or single quote, it doesn't matter. It's like every other programming language. And also, there is a useful thing called string template literal in JavaScript. So let me just clear the screen now. Yeah. If you want to write something like some sentence in which you, in the middle of it, you want to have some variable value, doing this is a hectic job. So instead of that, we can use the string template literal. So it should start with a backtick. Backtick is different from single quote. Backtick is what it will be like almost in the leftmost corner of your keyboard. So yeah, we have to put a dollar sign, and inside the floral bracket, we have to put the variable we want to display and complete it with a backtick. So yeah, this is actually useful. So the next thing is next primitive type is booleans. These are like special words in JavaScript, nothing distinct in JavaScript. It's like any other language. So yeah, we can store them in any variable like anything else. That's all. And the next is null. It is like an intentional absence of any value, and it must be assigned. And the next is undefined. Undefined are the variables that do not have an assigned value. So that's all about primitive types. Let's move on to conditional. Conditionals are the basic condition statements like any other language. This is the syntax for if else with a else if block, and switch else is also there in JavaScript. So I don't think I need to explain much about this. The next are loops. These are the syntax of for loop and while loop. It is nothing different from the other languages, and I've given some examples also. Um, and there are some loops like for off and for in JavaScript. So they are used to iterate over the iterables. So yeah. Next is function. This is the basic syntax of a function. But before that, let's learn some basic things like console.log. Like what will the console.log do? So console.log prints the argument to the console. That's all. So to run this in the console, it may seem ridiculous, but when we are working in a file and that file is completely disconnected from the console, it is very useful. So now let's also see how to run a JavaScript from a script file. So yeah, here I'm having a basic HTML file. It's a very blank HTML file. It doesn't have anything. So let's create a index.js file. So the file should have the extension .js and it can have any name. So let's print the console.log here. Console.log. So let's save this. Now in the index.html, we need to connect the script with the HTML file. For that we need to use a script element, script tag. So the script element accepts an attribute called source, src basically. That we need to give the path of the script file we are going to connect. So here it is, index.js. So here it is reflecting in the console, in the HTML files console. So that's all about the basic concepts. Now we can move to the DOM. It is a programming interface for the web document where it treats HTML document as a tree structure. Each node is an object representing a part of the document. So this is how an HTML document is represented as DOM. Like it is a very simple HTML document which has a head with a title and a body with a h1 and a div in which there is a paragraph and another div with a paragraph. And this is how it is treated in the DOM model. So yeah. Now let's see about the document object. We try to print this document object. The document object is our entry point to the DOM. It contains the representations of all the content on a page, plus tons of useful methods and properties too. So this, if we try to print just the document, we will see the HTML tags of the file. If we try to console.vir of the document, we will get the JavaScript object of it. Like here it will be like basic properties like URL, and there is also a reference to the body. It is actually the body of the page, and also there are like many features like full screen or not, and everything will be displayed here. And if we try to do console.log of the document, it will give the HTML. So yeah. For this demo, I have a simple. I have made a simple HTML file about competitive programming. So it's very simple. I just made this to demonstrate it, nothing much. So yeah, I'll go to the console. So here, let me just show the console.vir of it. Spelling mistake. Yeah. Here, as this HTML file contains images, we can even see the images and all here. It has 3 images, and everything is shown in this JavaScript object of the document. Yeah. And there's something called document.all. It gives an array-like content, but not an array. It's like a collection thing, like content of the web page. It's not an array, but array-like thing. So we can even access the document of all using its index. Let me just show you one example. I'll try to access the 11th one from the collection. So it represents this bold tag of competitive programming. So yeah. So this is one of the ways to access or change these without touching the HTML. So we must understand that the document object is where everything is contained. And also there are many more ways to select these elements. And one such way is get element by ID. So it is a method in the document where when we call it, we pass a string, and this string needs to correspond to some ID of an element from the HTML file. So uh, here is a the HTML file which I have been showing, and for some tags I've given like some IDs. Like for this image, it has an ID of main. This H2 has an ID of history, and this div contains ID of history content. So let's try accessing it using the get element by ID. Document dot get element by ID. Inside the brackets within the quotes, we need to give the ID. Yeah, now we have this. We will try to console.react this. Yeah, it gives us the object. We can even see the properties of it, like the height, width, and everything we can see here. Oh yeah. Let's also try to access a div called history.content. I will store this in a constant called his. Now we are trying to access a div called history content. Div which has a ID of history content. And I will try to console.tr out this as well. So here, why I'm showing you this is what it has some children. That is, it has two paragraphs inside the div. So by accessing an element, we can also try to access its children or parent element as well. So yeah. There is also two other ways to select: get elements by tag name and get elements by class name. Like they are like plural. We can get elements like a plural form of elements. Let's try selecting all the images using the image tag. Document dot get element by tag name. So the tag name should be given between the quotes. So yeah, the collection of images is there. Like all the three images are there. Mm. Okay, let's do something now. I'm going to the JS file. So this dom dom.html has a link to dom.js. So here I'll just make a collection of all these, all images. And I'm getting everything by the tag name images. So yeah, I will iterate it using the for loop for let range of all images, and this is the for of loop I was talking about in that. First, let's just try printing out the source of the images. Once I do that, I would need to like reload the page, and here I've got the source of every other image. So it is just to show you that it is not an array. Like we can't use the array methods over the collection. It is we can just iterate over it like a collection. That's all it is. And we can manipulate the things also here. Like let me change the image source of all the images to that of the second one. I'm just changing uh, the image source of for the all of the images to that of the second one. So, yeah. When we do this, every image is changed to that of the second image. Oh yeah. Now let me just change it back. Now it's normal. Hmm. Now let's go to the get element by class name. Uh, in this HTML file, I have given the class name as square for these two images alone, like just to uh, say that they are in square shape. Like if you see here, I have given like a respective property to them with the CSS file, so that's why they are named as square. Yeah. Um, Now let me just get these in console. There only these two images are like having the class square. The first one does not have the class square, so yeah, these one are displayed. Now we have something important. It's called query selector. It's just the one method through which we can select by ID or select by class or tag, anything. So, yeah. But the thing is, query selector of something will give the first match, only give the first match one of that. Like, let me just show you. In this HTML, we have like 4 paragraph. So let me just query select the paragraph alone. Yeah, it's giving only the first paragraph. So it gives us the first paragraph alone. But there is also something called query selector all. And it will give us the collection of all the paragraph tags. So, yeah, all the paragraphs are here. So, and another thing is for tags, we can pass the name of the tag as it is. But for ID, we must add an hashtag with the name and a dot for the class name. Let me just show you. For ID, we had this main ID, right? For ID, we need to add a hash in the front. And for the class, we need to add a dot in the front. Yeah. Next, we can see about attributes. Here, if you see that, I'm saving the first link in that HTML file as a link, and one of its attributes is href, and I'm accessing it using .href, but we can also access it using get attribute, a method called get attribute. The only difference is that when I am doing get attribute, I'm getting directly from the HTML itself. Href is going through like JavaScript, like it will get it will give us the answer through JavaScript. It may be confusing, but as of now, just know that there is a distinction, and we get a different value when we use them. Yeah. We can also use get attribute to get any of the attribute of it. Like here, the like the a link has the title tag also, like title attribute also. We can even try to access it using get attribute. And there is also something called set attribute. It is as name suggests that it sets that attribute to the given value. Okay, let's try a demo of it. I am saving the first image which has the square class as image one. But so I'm setting the attribute class attribute of it, image one. as something I don't know, like anything you can set it. Once we change that, the size of it also changes because the class square had some like specified width here in this in its CSS. So once I change this, even the size is also changed. Let me just show you the class. See the class of the images, like I don't know. Let me just change it back. Once I change it, the size also goes back to the previous size. So yeah. Um, Now we can see about the one of the essential properties of JavaScript. It's called inner text. Like let me just first clear this. Hmm. So now I'll save the first bold tag as a as something called name. Yeah, I will do console.dir. That's the name. Now if we open this, like we can see something called inner text here, and we can change this inner text and it will be reflected here. This is the bold tag we are talking about, and I will change this. We can change this using document or query selector. Inner text equal to in quotes whatever we need to change. And see, it is reflected here. And if we want to add something, some tag like italics to some H1 or something, we need to use something called inner HTML. Let's understand the difference first. So I'll just take the inner HTML of the first paragraph, sorry, inner text of the first paragraph first. So it gives us just the text. If I try to get the inner HTML of it, we get all of the tags included as well. So it gives something like along the lines of the HTML of it. So if we need to add the italic or something to it, like we need to use the inner HTML. I'm trying to change the H1 as a italics. Oh, I'll just do CP for now. Yeah, it changed. If I try to change this using inner text means, I'll show you that as well. Yeah, it would change the whole tag to this. We need to change it using the inner HTML for it to for the italics tag to be used. So next, we can set inline styles using the styles property, but it is not a great idea if you have a lot of styles to set up at once. The better option is to create a CSS class, then apply that class. So here in the CSS file, if you can see, means I've created like two simple classes, CSS classes here called purple and underline. So let me just show you how to add these classes to it. So I will clear this once. So let me just select the H2 first. The H2 here, we are going to do this. So let me just select the H2 class. Let's see the class list of it. Like using the class list, we can interact and control the classes of it. Let me just show you. H2 dot class list. Right now, there is no classes on it. We can even go and verify here. Like this H2 doesn't even have any class on it. So let's try adding a class to it. Pass it dot add. We'll add the class whatever we are passing. Let's just add the purple now. See, I think you can see the text when changed to the purple color. I'll just show you in the class list as well. See, the purple is added here. And now let's try adding another class as well. I'll add the underlying class now. Now it's added to, yeah. I'll show you the class list as well. See, now the class list has these two of these class. And likewise, as we added, we can even remove these classes as well. Right, I will change this add. We just need to change the add to remove, that's all. So, yeah. I will remove the purple class as well. Now we have removed both the classes and the class list is empty. So now let's head into the DOM events. Let me just explain an event. When a user or a browser interacts with a web page, an event occurs. It is like when we click a button or something, when a web page is loaded, or we move the button, move the mouse across a button or a paragraph, or when an input field of a form is changed, or when we try to submit a form, all comes under the event. So let us try to understand this using this HTML I've created. So yeah, here let's here I'm adding an like on click attribute uh, and changing the content of this H2. So I will show you the demo. Like I'm changing this, I'm clicking this, and once I click, the content of it is changed. And the same can be done using the JavaScript functions inside a script tag too. So, yeah. See here, I've done this. It is advised to write the JavaScript code in a separate file, but I'm just showing that we can write the JavaScript using the script tag in a HTML file itself as well. So this function is according to this H1 tag. Like here we are passing the ID into the function, which changes its content. So let me show you this. This is the H1 we are talking about. When I click on it, so yeah, it is changed. So the next thing is add event listener. So sorry. So it is a generic method. We can pass in any sort of event which we want to listen for. This is the basic syntax of it. So the first parameter is of the type event, and the second parameter is a function we all want to call for when the event occurs. And the third parameter is a Boolean value specifying whether to use an event bubbling or event capturing. That you need not worry about right now. So this parameter is completely optional. So yeah. I will show you the HTML file of it. So I'm having a button here, and under that there is a paragraph. So, and I'm also here having a variable called x. It represents that button with the ID my button. So it has like three add event listener methods: one for clicking, one for mouse over, and another one for mouse out. Each of them has a separate function to change the paragraph tag with the ID demo. Like, let's see how this works. I will reload this one. So when I try to um, push my cursor over the button, it will display mouse over. When I try to move the cursor out of the button, it will say mouse out. When I click, it will say click. And this is how an add event listener method works. So yeah, this is all about the DOM events and basics of JavaScript. Now, Saint Mori will guide you through a code along project. Saint Mori?
Yeah, just a minute. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
So I'm Tainmuri. I'm from second year EC department, and today we are gonna do a small project called typing speed test game. So basically, typing test is a game where you can check your typing speed, like word per minute, character per minute, accuracy, etc. So in this game, the max time for typing is 60 seconds, but while you're coding it, you could also change it. So basically, so when I start typing here, so So you could see the mistakes, word per minute, character per minute, and you have the timer running down here. So you can also erase your incorrect characters or go backwards. So backspace also works. So if I make any mistakes or if it is correct, I could backspace it. And then you have try again also. So you can click on try again button to reset the result and load your new paragraph. So this is basically the demo of what we are going to be doing today. So the starter files will be provided to you all in the comment section. Do we have the starter files?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've sent them in the chat box.
Yeah. Okay, so basically you are given the HTML and CSS files. So this is basically the file hierarchy. So first you create a JavaScript folder, okay, JS folder here, and you have two JS files here. So one is paragraphs.js and another is script.js. So let's just explore what's there in the paragraphs.js file. It's just basically an array which has the different paragraphs. So basically when you saw in the demo, I'll show you the demo once again. So every time I reload the page, you don't have the same paragraph. You get another new paragraph. So it's coming in random. So the collection of these paragraphs are stored in this array. So that is what this whole array is about. You could also add as many more paragraphs you want. Just for convenience, I've restricted myself with this. So next you have an index.html file. You have so basically, as Charu has already mentioned, JS programs can be inserted anywhere into the HTML document using the script tag. So this contains the JavaScript code, which is auto-executed when the browser processes the tag. So when you have a lot of JavaScript code, though, it is better to put it into a separate file, and then you can attach it using the source attribute. So now let's jump into the script.js file. So we have all these different query selectors here. So as she already mentioned, our query selector method returns the first element that matches the CSS selector. So for example, here we have time tag, query selector, time span. So basically that will return the first element that matches the, okay, let me just expand this for better view. So this will return the first element with the class time span. So first, let's just do a small function. So yeah, let's just try out a small function to see if this thing is working. So this function will basically load a paragraph in random. So load paragraph. So I'm just gonna randomly choose the first paragraph. It's just like in Python, the indexing starts at 0. So I'm calling the function. So let's see what we are getting here. So yeah, so now when you see in the console tab, you see this paragraph. And if you go and check it in the paragraphs.js file, it's basically the first paragraph. So that's that. But as we saw in the demo, we just don't want the first paragraph. We want like a random paragraph. It should be any paragraph. So how do we get that? How do we implement that? So that's easy. So let's just create another variable called ran index. So that let ran index. I'll just tell you the logic behind it in a minute. Okay, so basically, we all know what floor function is. It basically chooses the greatest integer, which is less than the numeric expression which is given as the argument. So basically, the thing is, when we choose a number in random, it's all good. But the number we choose in random should be less than the size of the paragraph array. We don't want just some random number, for example, 200 or something. But the paragraph array size is like, it's less. So we want a number which is less than the size of the array. So for that, we're using this into paragraph start, this logic down here. So let's pass this, instead of 0, let me pass the ran index and see what I'm getting. Okay. So now if I refresh this or whatever, you can see that every time I refresh the page, I get a random paragraph. It's not the same as the previous one. It's not the first paragraph. It could be anything. So that is the whole point of adding the ran index variable. Now, another thing is here, the output is in the form of like words or sentences. But as we saw in the demo, we don't want these big words or sentences. We want to do the comparison at the character level. So because like the whole correct or incorrect evaluation happens at the character level. So I put one character and it matches it with what is there. The comparison happens at the character level. So how do I decompose this into characters? It's simple. It's just same like Python. I just use a split function. Split. And for split method, splits a string into an array of substrings based on the delimiter given as argument. So if the argument is omitted, a single element array containing the entire string is returned. So that's what we see here in the console tab. So we see all these one single element thing. So I'm going to put another thing and I'll explain you what it is in a moment. So I'm going to use the template string. Okay, so the reason why I did this was I just don't want the output in the console tab. I want it to be shown in my screen. So the logic behind it is like for each method calls a function for each element in an array. So here like an inner HTML is a property of the element that allows you to get or set a HTML markup contained within the element. So what I'm doing here is let me inspect it and I'll show you what's happening behind the scenes. So as you can see in this console thing, you see every character is inside the span. So what the logic is you're getting a random item from the paragraph array and you're splitting it all into characters using the split function, and then you're adding each character inside the span tag, and you are adding each span into the p tag. So that's what you see. So when I just iterate through this, can you see it's like between every span tag. So yeah, that is how this works. So now let's do something else also. So we are going to be working with event listeners now. So document.add event listener, and here the first argument will be an event. So here I'm gonna go with two events: key down event and if key down, and also the click event. So if key down event is invoked, this event, I mean when this event is dispatched, what callback function will be invoked? So I'm using arrow function. So this is pretty much self-explanatory. Input field dot focus. So when the key down event is dispatched, I want the input field to come into focus. Okay, there's one more thing we forgot to do. So go to your style.css file, and then you'll find this class called .wrapper.input field. I just want you to remove this for the moment. like we will need this in the end, but right now for the learning process to understand what exactly is happening behind the scenes, we don't need this now. So go back to scripts.js. Now when I removed it, can you see, like before there was this input field was not there, but now you see this input field here. So so we'll play with this now. So this is one event listener, and the other event listener is type in text dot add event listener. The next event is click. Yeah. So we'll again be using the arrow function. So input field dot. So basically you are focusing the input field on key down or click event. I'll show you how this thing works. So if I comment it down for a moment, like see, now if I type this input field comes into focus. Let me just comment it out for a moment. And now if I press on this screen, nothing happens. This thing gets selected, but the input field doesn't come into focus. But if I remove the comment, now if I click here, you could see the input field coming into focus. So that is the function of this add event listener. So that is one thing we did. And now what we do is we go to the input field. You add an event listener there. So here the event will be input. So this input event fires every time the input tag or the select tag changes. Okay, so when this input event happens, I want this callback function called init typing to execute. I'm just declaring the function here. I'll be defining it in a moment. So this is the function. So now let's get started with the function init typing. Okay, so this is function init typing. Okay, so first we are going to define this variable called const characters. So we'll again be using the typing text.query selector we saw in the beginning. Here we'll be using query selector all because we want to choose all the elements which have the class called span. So let me just console.log to check if this thing is working. Console.log characters. Okay. Now, if you see, okay, let me just type something here. And let me go to console. Okay, so when I type something, do you see all these spans? Let me refresh and show you again. So I type something, like it could be anything, doesn't matter. So it just keeps showing me span. Okay, to get a better idea of this, let me put an index here. Okay, so now if I type something, you could just see the first character. Do you see just W between the span tag? So irrespective of what I type, it will just keep showing me W. How many ever times I could type correct, incorrect, doesn't matter, just the first element. Because as you can guess, we have only mentioned the first element in 0 here. But obviously, this is not what we want. We don't just want the first element. We want to iterate through all the elements. That's how we can check if what we are typing is same as what is there, and then we can check if it is accurate or not. So to get all that down, let's create another variable called let type car. Okay. So this is what we are typing. So this is the variable that stores that. So I'm going to store it as input field dot value. And again, we don't want it as like an aggregate of words or something. We want it character by character. So I'm going to put split. Let's see what happens with this. And instead of characters of 0, I replace it with typed char. Okay, now if I type something here, let's see what happens. Can you see that? So whatever I type is like here, it doesn't matter if it matches or not, but whatever I type is being displayed in this console here. So let me kind of expand it. See, whatever I type. So authors often missing. Okay, I'm typing in the wrong place. Okay. Yeah, whatever I type is like it's coming as an array of every single element. That's because I use split here. So okay, let's put okay, we need a particular index here to keep track of the elements. So for now, I'm going to put 0, but just putting 0 is not what we want. We don't just want the first element. So let's initialize another variable called char index. So char index, as the name suggests, will be the storing the index of the current value wherever we are at that point. So char index, let's initialize it to 0 first, and then we'll iterate it. So I'm putting char index 0. So now after I've initialized it, instead of 0, I'm just going to replace it with char index. So yeah, now if I type something, it's going to be, so do you see, like irrespective of what I type, only A is getting. So I just again I'll show you. Here you see A 10, but I haven't typed A 10 times. I've just typed a baby, a baby is shingle or whatever. So that is because, again, as you might have guessed, even if we have replaced it by a variable, the variable still equals 0. So we have to increment it. So we haven't done that yet. Before that, I need to add another logic here. The whole logic of this is, so whenever whatever I type is matches with what is there, it should tell me it's correct or it's incorrect. So that's just a simple if-else statement, just like in Python. So let's just implement that. So here we're going to take help of this special method called class list. Before that, okay, not class list first. Okay, Charu has already mentioned about the inner text. So we need this inner text to extract the text out of it. We can't because we are dealing with elements here. So if this equals absolute equality, so if characters of char index or this equals typed char, then I want to, like, for just for our verification right now, I'm just going to console.log correct. Else, I'm going to say, let me just copy paste it. And that small caveat we saw before, like we don't just want the first character. So I'm going to increment char index. Yeah, done. So now let's see if that works. Okay, so the first character I typed was correct. So it's saying it's all correct. Let's see if it is saying if I'm doing it wrong. Let me type something wrong. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I forgot to change correct to incorrect. Yeah. So now let me do it again. So first I'm typing it correct. It's showing correct. Let me do something wrong. So see, it's showing incorrect. Again, if I type something correct, it will show me correct. So that's working. It's not just saying, it's not just comparing the first element alone, it's comparing everything. So if I type something incorrect, it shows correct. So yeah, that works. But this console.log is just for debugging purpose. I want to do something substantial. So what I'm going to do is, I have to, like, whenever I see the characters match, I need to add this class called correct class. So for that, I'm going to use this method called class list. So wait, first let me type this. And I'm going to add the class called correct. And similarly, if it does not match, and I'll just copy paste this. Yeah. Incorrect. So what is this correct class, incorrect class? Now, if you go to the styles.css file, do you see this correct class, incorrect class? So when I put this correct class, this style here will be implemented there. So same for incorrect class. And we'll also be looking at active class in a moment. So this class, okay, let's see how this works behind the scenes. I'll show you that. So you see, whenever I type something correct, you see the green color, and yeah, you see the green color. Now, if I type something wrong, there's the red color. So we'll see how that works. Let me inspect it. And when I go to the HTML, do you see for every span, before we saw every character was between the span, but we didn't see this class attribute there. Now you see this class attribute. So everything for the first this could be was correct. So everything was correct. So you see the class correct. And then when it got incorrect, you see the class incorrect here. So basically the class is being added. So this is all about the correct and incorrect class. But I just don't want to keep track of correct and incorrect class. I also want to keep track of the active class. Active class is basically at which character I am at this present moment. So if I keep track of that only, I would be able to do further manipulations. So I need to keep track of this active class. So how do I do that? Same, like I can use the same code basically. So instead of this incorrect class or correct class, I just change it to active class, which has a special style class in the style.css file. So here I just add, irrespective of it's correct or incorrect, it doesn't matter. I want active class, so I can just add it outside. So now again, if I try it out, let's see what happens. See. Now, do you see, like as I type, do you see this funny design of this thing going in and out, this animation, this funny weird design? Okay, what is happening? Why is that? Wait, let me show you. So when you see the span class, along with this correct class, there's another class called active. You keep seeing this active class. But the whole point of having active class, it should just happen once. It should just be the current element. It just can't be the previous elements or the future elements. Like, so the mistake we're doing here is we are not removing the active class from all the span elements and then adding this active class only to the element which we are at in the current moment. So first you have to remove the active class from all the elements before adding the active class to the present element. So let's do just that. So here it's pretty much the similar code. So characters dot for each and so again we take help from our dear old friend class list, and so we first remove the active class and then we add the active class only for that char index. So that is the present index alone we add active. For everything else we remove active. So it's here. Yeah, that's there. So now let's see if we still see that funny design there. No, we don't. So the blue is just coming for the present character. It's not coming for all the past characters. That you could see that beautiful animation. Could you see that? Let me do that again. So the active class is only at my last character, at U only. Before everything, it's just character. It doesn't repeat again. So that was all about this active class. Now let's go to the backspace button. So as I mentioned during the demo, we also had this backspace option. So like right now, if I put backspace, let's see what happens if I put backspace. It's just showing me as a mistake, but this is not what I want. In the demo, when I put backspace, it all went back. Everything got decremented. Mistakes got decremented. Everything got decremented. It was kind of a reset thing. So how do I implement it here? So in JavaScript, backspace is kind of, you could implement it like by the logic that if like value of it is null. So that is simple. So I'll go to the function of init typing, and below this, I'll create this condition called if typed char equal to null. Please be careful to use just two equal signs, not the absolute equality, then it will show undefined. So if typed char equal to null, we want to decrement the current index. And there's also one more thing we want to do. We just don't want to decrement the current index. We also want to decrement the mistakes and the correct things. Like even that should be decremented. Then only it would make sense, right? Like basically current index is a superset of all of them. So characters of char index dot class list. Again, I'm going to use class list, but this time we have to remove two classes. We'll see how we can do that. It's just simple. You just separate them by commas for both the classes. Correct and incorrect. Now, what you do is, it's important, don't forget it. When you add a else statement, you're going to cut all this till char index plus plus, and you're going to insert it in this else part. because there are only two cases. Either what you type has a value which could be matched with the typed car, or it does not have a value, it is null. So there are only two cases. So you need to make sure that this whole logic we wrote in the beginning should come in the else part, because if it is null, this will be executed. If not, this should be executed. So now let's see if this backspace thing is working. So I'm going to type wrong, ancient times the let's okay, now let me put back. Okay, let me type something wrong also. And yeah, now let me backspace. Yeah, backspace is working. Before, when, if you remember, when I backspace, it was showing us error. It just kept on incrementing error. But now it is backspacing. So the mistakes are backspacing, the correct ones are backspacing, everything, the backspace works perfectly. So now let's go on to the mistakes thing. So now backspace is working. Now there's another feature I showed in the demo, which is mistakes. Right now, if I do any mistake, like say I'm making so many mistakes, but see the mistakes field here, it's just showing me 0 because it's hard coded in the HTML file as 0, but I want to do some changes with it. That's how the game will become more interesting. So for that, I have to create another variable called mistakes. So let's do that. Mistakes equal to 0. Yeah. So now, so whenever I find the characters are not matching and I'm adding the incorrect class, I will also increment the mistakes variable by 1. Yeah. So I'm doing that. But just doing this won't change anything. So if I, after doing all this logic, and if I still type something, and I'm going to type something wrong, again, I don't see any change in the mistakes, the same as before. That's because of the inner text Charumati has already explained. So I have to manipulate this. The mistake tag we saw, the query selector in the beginning, I'm going to put that dot inner text equal to mistakes. So you have to remember that we are dealing with elements here. So yeah, so mistake tag dot inner text. So now if I try it out, let's see what happens. Tramp is okay. Let me do something mistake. See, now the mistakes is working. Now it's incrementing. As I keep doing a mistake, it is incrementing. So that is because I use this inner text. So that's the magic ingredient. Don't forget that. So I hope you all are able to follow me till here. Now, so this was all about mistakes, but there is one small edge case here. Now we implemented backspace, we implemented mistakes, but these two should collaborate together. They should also sync together and work together. Let's see if that is the case. Now I have some mistakes here and I'm trying to backspace, but why is this mistake field is not decrementing? It's like it's just showing 5, but if I backspace, logically that should also reduce, right? So what do I do for that? Again, it's simple. I go back to the class init typing and I go to this if type car. So I'm going to create another if statement here. Okay, let me just first put mistakes minus and see how that is working out. Okay, I'm just putting mistakes minus and now let me see how that looks. Okay, now if I do some mistakes and I try to backspace it. Okay, no, first let me put something correct also. All right, okay, now let me backspace it. Do you see, for even the correct ones, it's backspacing? I mean, for the wrong ones, it will backspace, but for the correct ones also, it's backspacing because we put it in that common if loop. We should have put another statement there. So see, and the mistakes are going negative, which definitely does not make sense. We don't want that. So what do? We create another if loop there. So we create another if loop. So this time we put a condition that like only if, okay, let me type that. Let me cut this and paste it here. Okay, so basically, I'm just checking that only if that particular class list contains incorrect. If the incorrect class is there only in that element, I should decrement the mistakes. Else, it doesn't make sense. Why would I decrement? Why would I decrement mistakes for all the correct ones I did? So that's cruel. So I don't want that. So only if it contains incorrect, I will decrement it. So that's what this logic basically says. Now it will work properly. Hopefully, let's check it out. Rectangle. Okay, so let me make some mistakes. And yeah, now let me backspace it. See, it is not like previous time. It is not decrementing for even the correct ones. It is just decrementing for the really wrong ones. See, for all the correct ones, it's not decrementing, and it's not definitely it's not going to negative. So which is definitely what we want, staying at 0. Good. So now that was all about mistakes. Now let's go to timer. So as we saw here, we have this timer option here. In the demo, we saw that like this timer actually runs, but here it is just static because that's what we hard coded in the HTML file. So you could put this timer as whatever you want. Like you could put it 10 seconds, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you want. Just for convenience sake, I put 60 seconds. For whatever time you want, we can calculate that per minute or word per minute, because basically we're just dividing and multiplying by 60 and that. So yeah, so for timer, first let's start with defining this variable. Let me just remove this. Okay, so I'm basically defining a variable called time 60. You could do whichever time you want, and then I'm creating another variable called time left, which is self-explanatory. Like after I start, how much more time is left for me before the game ends, and I'm equating it to max time. And these were the variables we did before itself. So now I'm going to set a timer. So how do I set a timer? So I come here. In JavaScript, for setting a timer, you use this method called setInterval. So in setInterval, the first argument will be the function that will be executed. Here, the function is going to be init timer, and the second argument. Okay, I shouldn't have put the quotes. Init timer, and it will execute after 1000 milliseconds. So now I have just declared the variable. Declared the function. Let me go and define it. So I have already written this skeleton of the function. Let me just comment it out to show you. This is basically a very easy function. So function in a timer. So okay, there are only two cases. Okay, so the time can't be negative, as you saw. Like mistakes can't be negative. Time definitely can't be negative. There are only two cases. So either if the time is greater than 0, it should keep decrementing until it is not greater than 0, in which case it is 0. If it is 0, the timer should reset. So for example, if it is 60 seconds, it is greater than 0. So is greater than 0. So I decrement it and it becomes 58 seconds and so on. So yeah, 1 second. 58 seconds and so on. So and if when it becomes 0, it is definitely not greater than 0. So we are resetting the timer. Yeah, let's see if that works. So yeah, we see the timer is working. It's not just static. Wow, that was the fastest 60 seconds of my life. That went very fast. That is definitely not 60 seconds. That is less than 60 seconds. But why is that happening? We have a small problem here, because init timer function is calling every time when the user inputs some value, but we have to call it only the first time the user is inputting. We don't want it to be called every single time the user is. That's why it's creating this exponential thing, and the time is decreasing very rapidly. So what I'm going to do is, it's simple. I'm going to create this variable called isTyping, which is already there. Like, yeah, this is typing variable. Now I'm going to go to this function init typing, and under this, I'm going to create this if condition, which says that if the person is typing or not. Okay, so if not is typing, okay. So I cut this and I'm going to put this. So the reason why we are doing this, we want to set the timer only if the person is not typing. If they start typing, we don't want to keep setting the timer again and again. It's redundant. So yeah, and I'm going to set this is typing equal to true. So this is similar to the while condition in Python. So if this is true, this will this will run, this will execute, and but then is typing becomes true. So then this loop won't keep on running repeatedly. So that is about if. Now let's see if that works. Let's see if the timer is working properly. Yeah, the timer is working okay. I mean, it's not going fast, going the way it should. Yeah, that's going good. So you see that 40, it's still in 40 seconds only. So that timer part is done. So yeah, that was all about the timer. So once the timer starts, it won't reset or restart again. So now there is something else also we need to look into, that is word per minute and character per minute. So we have already defined the query selectors here. So basically one assumption we're doing is, okay, a couple of assumptions. Character per minute will not include the mistakes. So say my character per, okay, the number of characters or the char index of mine is like say 10 characters and I made 2 mistakes. So the character per minute will only be 8 because mistakes are being excluded. So that is something we need to remember before we are implementing the logic. So I'm going to come here and here near this. Yeah. I'm going to again use inner text because as I already, because of the reasons I already mentioned, CPM tag dot inner text. And what am I going to assign this to? So as I said, it will be characters minus mistakes. So yeah, let's see if that works. Okay, there is some mistake here. No, sorry, it's not characters, it's char index. Let's see if that works. Yeah, you can see the character per minute being incremented. Okay. So the thing is now it's at 26. Okay. So if I do something wrong, it's the CPM it is at 26, right? If I do something wrong, but my char index has implemented because like I've come forward, but my CPM stays the same because it does not include the mistake. So if I do something mistake, it won't increment. But if I do something correct, see, you've got the CPM at 28 and it will keep on increasing. So yeah, that's how CPM works. Now let's go to WPM. That's word per minute. So the one basic assumption we are doing is every word contains only 5 characters. So that's the logic. You could even assume it is like 7 characters and you could modify the code according to it. But just for this simplification, we are just going with 5. Okay, so first I'll write the logic for WPM and then I'll explain you how that works. Okay. So basically, we know that char index minus mistakes is CPM. So we are taking the character per minute, and when we divide it by 5, we obviously get the word per minute because every word contains 5 characters. So now what we do is, for example, in 30 seconds, I'm able to type 10 words. In 60 seconds, how many words will I type? So that will be 60 into the number of words I type divided by 30 seconds. That is 30 seconds is nothing but the total time minus the remaining time. That is the time we have consumed to type those many characters. So it's just simple arithmetic. So I'm just using that logic here. And I also have to do something else. That is WPM tag, the same thing, what we did for CPM tag. We are again using inner text, the same thing. You could just copy paste that thing. Inner text equal to, here it's just straight away WPM. Okay, let's see if that actually works. Okay, there is one small error. Did you see that infinity there when we started? Let me show it again to you. I put I there. Did you see the infinity here? Yeah, so that's because like when I start, the number of words is 0. So that is one exception we see here. So let's see how to deal with that. It's again another very simple logic. Let me first type it down. Okay, that looks ugly. So in VS Code, you could just format the document instead of painstakingly putting space. Okay, so in WPM, so we have 3 conditions which we don't want, and we're using OR operator here. I hope you all know that the WPM. seconds. Okay, so 3 conditions. One is the WPM can't be less than 0. None of these values can be less than 0. So it can't be less than 0. So if it is less than 0, or if it is empty, or if it is equal to infinity. That's what we saw here when the first character we typed and there was infinity there. So all these 3 conditions happens, we are using a conditional operator here. So when any of these 3 conditions happen, we want to assign WPM to 0, or if it is not, if it's normal, all good, we just assign it to WPM itself. So that's the logic we're using. Now let's see if we're still getting that infinity error. No, we don't. It's just 0. Let me show it to you again. Reloading the page. Okay, I don't see the infinity there. It's just normal. Yeah, it's normal. It's good. So that was all about WPM and CPM. And okay, there's one more thing here. Okay, for that, let me just set this timer to 5 seconds, just for the sake of to show you all how this works. So when, like in real life scenarios, if I type something and if the timer is over, I shouldn't be able to type it just for security reasons, let alone this game, but in any real life scenario where we are using this logic. So if the timer runs out, I shouldn't be able to do anything in ideal case scenario. But here, let's see if that is the case. Here it's still showing 60 seconds because it has been hard coded in the HTML file, but here in the JavaScript file I put as 5, so it's just 5 seconds, remember that. So I'm typing here. The time starts, but it's going, see. Okay, so yeah, the time ran out because I just put 5 seconds, right? So, but then the timer has ran out. So ideally I shouldn't be able to type anything, but still I'm able to type, I am able to modify, I can do whatever I want, but that's not what I want. So what I'm going to do is, I don't want to be able to type, or I don't want to be able to modify anything when the timer has run out. So for that, it is again simple. I go back to the function init typing, and here I need to add another if statement, lot of if statements. So yeah, here I put another if statement. I'll show you what the condition is, and an else statement. So what we do is, we take all this logic here, we cut it, and we put it inside the if statement. And you'll understand why that is the case when you know the condition here. So if is okay, so the biggest problem we were facing was, we were able to type for eternity. We just kept typing, but for that not to happen, 2 conditions should be satisfied. One is the char index. My current index should not extend the number of characters which is there in the paragraph, and we're using -1 because of the indexing. So it should not go beyond the number of characters which is already there in the paragraph, which doesn't make sense. I want it to be less than character.length, and the time left should be greater than 0. If the time left is 0, strictly I should not be able to write, just like how it works in exam. If the time is over, we shouldn't be able to write anything. So the same logic here. So I'm just putting this condition, char index less than character, so this condition. And if we have put something in the if part, there's something we need to put in the else part also. So if this condition satisfies, whatever code we wrote before will all go inside this, because that's like whatever we did until now should only and only happen when there is time left for us to do, when we are allowed to do. Now in the else statement, if the timer goes off, what we do is, we just reset the timer. We just clear the clear timer. We just use clear interval of timer. That's it. Just a simple logic. And let's see how that is working. Just remember the timer is still at 5. Let's see if after 5 seconds we are still able to type it or not. Okay, I'm not able to type anything. Why is that? Because I just cleared the interval. So as soon as 5 seconds is over, I can type whatever I want in the input field. See, you can probably see I'm typing a lot of stuff, but that is not being reflected in the screen. The blinking thing is still at A only. It is not going beyond that. So that was why we did this whole thing. But again, even this is not very desirable. I should not even be able to modify the input field. The input field should just disappear when the timer is over. That is how ideally anything should work for security purposes. So how do I do that? Again, simple logic. I just have to set that field to an empty string. So then the whole thing will get clear. So if the timer goes off, I just set it to, I put input field dot value and I set it to an empty string. So yeah. So now the inside code will run only if the user has typed less than the total characters and the timer is greater than 0 and here else. Let's see if the input field is still working. So see, the timer goes off, and previous time I was at least able to type something on the input field. Now I can't even type anything, and that whatever is in the screen is also not moving forward. So yeah, that worked as we wanted. So we are done with time left, mistakes, WPM, CPM. There's one small thing left. That's the try again button. We saw in the demo, we were able to try again. We could try as many times as we want. That's like in every game, we have a try again option, right? So let's see how we can go about implementing the try again. So first and foremost, we put a try again. Let's add an event listener. Try again button dot add event listener, and the event will just be a click. So if I have to click the try again button, and I'm going to put a not an arrow function. I'm just going to reset it. So this is the name of the function that has to run when this event is being dispatched. So yeah, when I click this reset game function should execute. So let's go. Okay, first let's just cut it and put it to the end of the file. Cutting it and putting it to the end of the file. Yeah. So I have already given a skeleton of the reset game function. So this is basically the reset game function. It's pretty self-explanatory. So let's first analyze what we want when we put try again. So when I put try again, so let me go back to the demo here, and I have something like this, and let me just type, okay, if this was, okay, I'm clearly very unsatisfied with my speed. This is not what I want at all. So I'm just disappointed. So I'm just going to go and try again. See, when I try again, I want everything to go back to its original value, to its default value. I want mistakes to go back to 0, WPM, CPM to 0. Time left should go back to where it started. I want everything back fresh. So that is what we want to implement here. So that is what I'm doing. And first thing I have to do is I need to load a new paragraph. So when I reset it, I don't get the same paragraph. I get a new paragraph. One basic thing, important thing we need to remember is the new paragraph does not get appended to the old paragraph. It replaces the old paragraph. So that is something we need to take care of. So it replaces the old paragraph. So that is the first thing, load paragraph, and we have to clear the interval. So it goes back to 60 seconds, and we have to reset everything to back to its original value, WPM to original, CPM to 0, mistake to 0. The time tag should go back to time. So everything should go back to its original value. Let's see if all of this works. Okay, I have to set back that 5 seconds back to 60 seconds. Now let me reload the page and try again. Okay, let me try again. Okay, what's happening? Yeah, this is not what we want at all. So only mistakes is, okay, see, when I try again, don't you see, okay, let me expand it to get a better view. Okay, do you see the paragraph size has lengthened? Before, like, see, the average size of any paragraph was only this much, but when I put try again, the paragraph size has increased. That's because the new paragraph which was there, it just got appended to the old paragraph. It didn't replace the old paragraph. That's what I was telling. So I don't want the old paragraph. I just want a new paragraph. How do I go about implementing this? It's simple. So I just have to, like how I did here, inner text equal to, like I just set it to an empty string previously. So the same thing, that input field dot value I set it right in the init typing else. Yeah. So the same thing I'm going to do, but here I'm going to do with inner HTML. So I go back to the load paragraph function, and here next statement I'm going to put typing text dot inner HTML, and I'm going to set it to an empty string. Yeah. Let's see if that works. Sorry. Okay, let me put try again. It's taking some time. Let's see if that works. Yeah. See, now it is just the same. See, it all got reset. It just took me a little bit time. But yeah, now you see the paragraph is its original size. It's not big. Everything got reset to its original value. Everything is perfect just the way we want. So previous time you saw a bigger paragraph. So yeah, that part worked. Now we still have 2 or 3 small things to take care of. Now when I see this original thing, like before I start, there is nothing to indicate which is the first character. I mean, it looks fine. I mean, you could use it normally, but for it just looks bland. For aesthetic purpose, it would be better if that active class we mentioned previously, right? If it would be better if it was in the first character. So how do I do that? It's very simple. I just assign the first character to be in active class. So typing text dot query selector, and I just choose the first. I don't want every character. I just want the first character to be active. So I'm going to put that as active. Class list dot add active. Yeah, that's done. So now do you see, previously we didn't see this active character in the first element. It was very bland. It was all black. But now if you see, the first character is active. So that was all it. We are actually done. But we don't want this ugly input field here. That's the whole point of this input field is to understand what is going behind the scenes. Now I'm going to just go back to the original styles.css and I'm going to get it back. So now if you see that input field disappeared, because in the demo we saw it was whatever we typed, it kind of overlaid on what was there. So if I type on this, it was overlaying. It doesn't have a separate input field. That's what makes it look good. So now I did the same thing, and yeah, we are done here. So let me expand this and show you how it's working. So yeah, let me refresh it. Let's see if it's working the way we want. Oh, sorry. First, or else I'm not good at typing, I guess. Yeah, we get everything. Everything is working perfectly. Am I able to type in? Yeah, I'm able to type. Yeah, we are pretty much done now. Thank you.
Guys, if you have any questions, please use the chat box. And if you're not able to access the chat box, you can unmute and speak. And we'll be sharing the final code in the starter pack folder itself. For those who are not able to access the link in the chat box, don't worry, I'll send an email. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask or you can leave the meeting. Thank you. Tenmoli, could you add the final code in the drive link?
Yeah, I have a separate link for that. I'll send it in the group. I'm sorry, I'll send it in the WhatsApp. Yeah, I've sent it.
Okay.